Hello, welcome to Lemon Steers, where we talk anything and everything entertainment. I'm, of course, the Lemon himself, Zeke Lemon, and I don't know if y'all saw him at the bottom there, but that was Crash, if you did see any movement at the bottom of your screen. And this is my review for the SmackDown After Mania on April 12th, 2024. But before we get to that, let's get the house clean out of the way, shall we? I'm going to leave a like, comment below, let me know your thoughts on the SmackDown After Mania. And, of course, hit that subscribe button, as that does help me grow into my YouTube career, and it also gives my dog a treat. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into the review, shall we? So, SmackDown kicks off with Cody Rhodes coming out, and, he acknowledges how awkward it was with The Rock, and then that The Rock gave him something because it was a present that Cody gave him. We don't know what it was yet. We probably won't find out until next year at this point, because apparently that's happening at 41. And then it was just getting straight to business and getting set up for the title match at Backlash, where there's two triple threat matches. AJ versus Ray versus Kevin in the main event. That was later on. And then, of course, Bobby versus LA and Santos. And the second one that was happening literally right after this opening segment. It was really good. I really like what they're doing with the title match, with the titles. Where, hey, we have a lot of belts. Everyone's full-time, basically, for the first time in a really long time. The only part-time champion, I do believe, is Logan Paul. But he does show up a lot more now that he is a champion, and I cannot imagine them not having him in France. So it's just a really good time to be in, where every title really feels like, hey, everyone can really fight and climb for, and just having it just made SmackDown feel very, very fresh. It felt so fresh that I honestly think it was better than Raw this week. Now, granted, Raw did suffer a little bit because that weekend was nuts with a lot of wrestling, and I was a little jaded by the time we got to Monday. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. And then SmackDown, I took a break. I didn't really watch any wrestling. I did tune into AEW for obvious reasons, but I only really watched that segment. And then it was back to hibernation until today. So I was like fresh and I was ready for wrestling again with this day. So that probably has an indication as to why I think SmackDown was so much better than Raw. But also, it was a cool moment. It was a way just to get Cody on the show. But that's all by design, right? Because Roman's whole thing was he was never on the show. And now we have a champion who will be on the show. Then we get to the triple threat matches. They were fine. It does look like we're going to do Bobby versus, or the Pride versus Legado del Fantasma. That looks like the next feud that's heading there. Looking forward to that. I think that has the indication to be better than it was with the Final Testament, because people are actually invested in Santos, while I don't think most of the general public was that invested in Karrion Kross, which is why they sent him back to NXT. So very curious to see how that plays out. And then after that, the segment of the night, just it's like in The Godfather when he goes, "Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in," because it was the segment of the night. Because it starts off with Solo realizing we don't have a locker room anymore. What the hell? And now that, we're indicating, hey, wins and losses have consequences. We're no longer the champion, so therefore we no longer get the locker room. We just do not. And this would have had much more of an impact if Solo would have just kept winning after he beat Cena, and he only lost very rarely, because I do believe he's on a losing streak right now. So when they come out and, Paul Heyman just says, yeah, we make no excuses. We take full accountability. We lost. But, Seth, and then we look like we're building up to Seth versus Roman, which will probably be Roman's final heel match before he turns face, because after this, there's another civil war that's about to happen. It's going to be bigger than the last one, which I don't know how that's possible, but hey, we are here. Because Solo goes, wins and losses have consequences. I was like, Solo, don't be mad, because you haven't won in like 6 months. And then he goes to Jimmy. He goes, hey, I love you. And then Tama Tonga shows up. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Not really familiar with his work, but he looks like a beast. I'm really curious to see how he plays out with the Bloodline 2.0. I do see some people saying, hey, it's going to be the two Roman's group versus Rock's group in a War Games match. I really don't think the Rock's insurance is going to let him do that. Really don't. But it would be cool to see if that does happen. There's just a bunch of directions that we can go in. And it does, like, when Roman comes back, it is going to be a case of, hey, daddy's home, and business is really going to pick up, and we'll probably finally get that Solo versus Roman match. And again, unless Solo racks up some wins and he beats some credible people, Solo will need to win. But I really don't see them having Roman lose twice back to back. I really don't. So he'll probably do Seth first, and then he'll move on to the Bloodline saga. But I am curious, like I said, man, every time I think I'm out, I'm like, all right, it's time to move on from the Bloodline. I was like, nah, the Bloodline can keep going a little bit longer, because very curious, because it looks like the Usos might get back together. I do see all the Bloodline heading to Raw. Again, I do think once this draft happens, they're going to really beef up Monday night, because when they go to Netflix, they're going to need to produce some views from day one. And so I do think the whole Bloodline saga is moving over there along with Roman. Then after that, what was next? The only other segments that I remember, so now we'll go back again. I'm just going to treat this like this is a movie review. Not going to do a whole breakdown of everything else. Tried my best, but hey. The next segment that I really want to touch on is the women's tag match with Chelsea Green. It just really feels like they're building Jade Cargill to be the next. Just for that, you're going one-on-one with The Undertaker, and I'm all here for it. But this time, Chelsea's like, look, I know that was Adam, Nick. That's not you. Give me and Piper a match. And he was like, you got it. And not only did he send out Jade again, it was also teamed up with Bianca Belair. And it looks like they're going to push him as a tag team. And I'm all for them going to get the belts. And I'm fine with the squash matches. I saw people complain like, oh, Jade only does the first 3 moves. It's like, yeah, the building about's a powerhouse. This is how you build up a strong powerhouse. They squash within like 30 seconds. And then later on, once they face that actual opponent, then you know, we start to see them cook a little bit. But you rarely see powerhouses go like 15-25 minutes, and if it goes longer, then it's only for like the main event of WrestleMania. It's only for Mania matches. So I think her pairing with Bianca will finally bring some relevance to those tag titles, which they desperately need. They can go on a very long run where they just rock fools, break them down. I could see them holding it until January, where the feud actually kicks off, where maybe Jade turns heel, because I think Bianca sells too much to turn heel. But hey, I'm fine with either turning heel whenever they do finally lose the belts, and then they can have that one-on-one match, and then we can finally get it going. And you can even play these squash matches into the storylines a little bit, where, you know, because it's a power team. I saw the WWE supposed to like name this team. I was like, Dream Team, like just name them the Dream Team, and they just beat people in like matter of seconds and even minutes. Like, oh man, they got to 3 minutes. Damn, they're starting to face some powerful teams, and it brings relevance to those titles. Again, I'm all for it, and they can bring relevance while also building up their feud as well. Bring it, please. Do it. Do it at Backlash. Get the titles on them as soon as possible. I like the Kabuki Warriors, but whatever is going to speedline these women's tag titles that actually mean something, do it. And I do think with someone like Bianca and Jade holding the belts, you have no choice but to take those titles seriously, and especially if they have a long run, which I do hope they get. And then after that, we had the Bayley segment, which was it was interesting. I like it. Again, I like what they're doing with the titles, where, you know, they're really showcasing everyone and with the belts, and like really just pulling out challengers left and right. I thought they would do Naomi versus Bayley at Backlash, but it does look like it's going to happen on SmackDown, and they're going to give Rhea and Liv the Backlash spot as well. I don't, because now I don't really see how you do 2 women's title matches on Backlash now that Bayley's about to have her first defense. Which is fine. It's really fine. Like, I also think, you know, they're probably going to give Logan the Backlash pay-per-view, and he'll face Orton with the segment that he had on his on the show. And Sammy will have his first defense Monday against Gable, and that will be the program. And then the next Priya will lead their switch. Sammy will get the premium live event while Bayley gets them, and you know, they flip-flop, and they'll probably keep both world titles on each title defense moving forward, which is probably fine. I would like if they just flipped every belt, so that way it makes SmackDown like, you know, a WWE Undisputed Championship on a SmackDown. I think the last time was with Matt Riddle once Roman actually merged them. So again, I'm all for it. Bring all the title matches, and just, you know, no matter how quick they are, maybe get rid from the Yeast title shot section, because it was kind of like Bayley was just going, you know what, Naomi, I don't think you've won a singles match since you come back. No fault to Naomi, that's all I'm booking. But you know what? You deserve one. What? Okay. Because Tiffany had every right in the world, but I do think it's a little early for Tiffany. Build her up to maybe SummerSlam, or she wins Money in the Bank. Although I mainly hope Chelsea Green wins Money in the Bank. But, you know, that's a video for another time. But, again, overall, I like this segment. Then the main event, AJ beats Kevin Owens and Rey Mysterio in a fantastic match. It was I was like, man, this is free. This is ridiculous. I absolutely love that. And AJ won, and now next week we get AJ versus LA again. So I hope they just kick off with AJ versus LA, because it's just a #1 contenders match, and the main event is a title. Like, as long as the title stays within the main event scene, it's going to keep on making those titles relevant. Because like the women's tag titles, I think the WWE women's title is it doesn't feel as important as the women's world title. And I just think putting it in the main event will also help with that. But overall, again, I do think this show was absolutely fantastic, stellar. They are clear directions moving in the future. I hope they execute them. Bloodline, pull me back in. I'm all for it, which is why I'm wearing the red. Love that Cody was just on the show, just to be on the show, because to show the contrast between both Cody and Roman. Again, like the women's segment, would have preferred if they just went down, hey, here's a #1 contenders match. Winner faces Bayley next week. But hey, it is what it is. As long as we keep showcasing these titles, it's going to be fine. Can't wait for the draft and see how this all shakes up. But let me know what y'all think. Comment below. Let me know your thoughts on SmackDown after Mania. And I will be back with y'all on Tuesday for the Raw. For next week's Raw, where Sheamus returns. And of course, well, maybe Chad Gable's probably going to turn heel. But until next time, guys, I'll see you here at Lemon Studios.